Your Excellency Charles Savarin, President of the Commonwealth of Dominica, and Mrs. Savarin, colleague heads, members of Cabinet, members of Parliament, members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Monetary Council, I am pleased to welcome everyone to the handover ceremony of the Chairmanship of the ECCB Monetary Council. Today, I will hand over the chairmanship to the Honorable Roosevelt Scarrett, Council Member for the Commonwealth of Dominica. When I assumed chairmanship of the Monetary Council, the global economy was recovering, but there were uncertainties as to the result of Brexit and the US presidential elections. At that time, the global economy was projected to grow by 3.6% in 2016. However, actual growth was 3.1%. The Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, ECCU, continues to recover and is estimated to have achieved a moderate growth of 2.57% in 2016. On assumption of office, our new governor articulated a new vision for the bank, a new vision anchored on 5 strategic priorities, namely exchange rate stability, financial stability, fiscal and debt sustainability, growth, competitiveness, and employment and organizational effectiveness. This vision has been endorsed by the Monetary Council. I will now touch briefly on some of our accomplishments in these areas during my tenure. And you would recognize that some of these accomplishments were articulated by the governor. They are being repeated for emphasis. I now look to the issue of exchange rate stability. Our exchange rate remains strong and stable. During the past year, our back-end ratio averaged 97%. Earlier this month, on July 6th, our currency union celebrated 41 years of exchange rate stability on the peg of 2.7 to 1, which was set back in 1976. This is a tremendous achievement for which we ought to be justifiably proud. On the issue of financial stability, during the year, overall financial sector indicators continued to improve. I wish to highlight that the non-performing loans ratio, a key indicator of asset quality, declined from 17% in 2015 to 11.1% in 2016. Capital adequacy ratio moved from 14.8% to 18.2% over the same period. During my tenure, the bank made significant strides in the operationalization of the new Banking Act. Accordingly, it has stepped up its supervision, including the frequency and timeliness of on-site examinations and submission of these reports to our banks. A major challenge to the banking system is de-risking or loss of corresponding banking relations. For its part, the bank continued its advocacy on this issue at meetings of the OECS Authority, CARICOM heads of government, and central bank governors, as well as with international financial institutions such as the World Bank and International Monetary Fund, and with the US government. I am pleased to note, as per my CARICOM mandate, Antigua and Barbuda hosted a successful conference on de-risking in October of 2016, and we continue to advocate on the issue of de-risking in the various regional and international fora. A rationale provided for de-risking is the small size of transactions with some banks and the high overhead cost of due diligence by the corresponding banks. The Monetary Council actively considered this issue and recommends that our national banks amalgamate to achieve the economies of scale and greater efficiency. This matter on which we intend to engage our citizens is being dealt with as a matter of priority. Additionally, in direct response to the issue of de-risking, the Monetary Council took the decision at its 85th meeting held on the 22nd of July 2016 to recommend to member governments that the legal responsibility for anti-money laundering, counter-financing of terrorism, AML-CFT, supervision and regulation of financial institutions licensed under the Banking Act be transferred to the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. We are thankful for the support of member governments as we move to amend the legislation. In April of this year, the Banking Act was examined to address areas that could further improve the regulation and supervision of the banking sector. The review was led by a ministerial subcommittee comprised of the Honorable Dr. Ralph E. Gonsalves, as well as Council Member for St. Kitts and Nevis, the Honorable Dr. Timothy Harris, and myself. We engaged our bankers and held discussions on the proposed amendments to the Banking Act. The final recommendations will be discussed at today's meeting of the Council. Despite the declining trend, non-performing loans in the region remained above the prudential level of 5%. In this regard, the operationalization of the Eastern Caribbean Asset Management Corporation, ECCB, is critical to help reduce the elevated level of non-performing loans in the currency union. I am particularly pleased to report that staff of the ECCB has been recruited, and the ECCB is now operating from its base in Antigua. When I accepted the chairmanship of the Monetary Council, the issue of bank fees and charges was being debated. The committee established by the Monetary Council to review commercial banks' fees and charges has delivered its report. This report, along with the report from the Bankers Association, is being examined by the Central Bank and will form the basis for further discussions at the level of the Monetary Council. In the context of the low growth environment, the Monetary Council is cognizant of the declining credit to the private sector by the commercial banks. Several initiatives to improve access to finance by the private sector are being implemented. At its meeting in March 2017, the Monetary Council approved a credit reporting bill and regulations, enabling legislation to establish a credit bureau. This legislation has now been submitted for passage through the parliaments of the respective member territories and was duly passed in Antigua and Barbuda. The establishment of the Credit Bureau is expected to reduce information asymmetry in the credit market, increase the efficiency of credit application processing, improve credit underwriting, and contribute to economic growth by improving access to credit, particularly for micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, MSMEs. Let me now turn to the issue of fiscal and debt sustainability. Over the year, the Monetary Council noted an improvement in the ECCU debt to GDP ratio from 79.3% in 2014 down to 72.5% in 2016. This augurs well to achieve a debt to GDP target of 60% by 2030. At today's Council meeting, we will discuss member states' interim fiscal targets and will enable member countries to achieve the 60% target by 2030. The Bank continued to engage in dialogue with member countries on developing and enacting fiscal responsibility legislation. In addition, the Bank has been an advocate for the transparency in the flow of funds under the Citizenship by Investment Program, CBI program, and the use of CBI proceeds for maximum development impact. In respect of debt management, the Bank provided technical support to build capacity under the Canada Eastern Caribbean Debt Management Advisory Service, DMAS program. Ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to report that from September 2016 to March 2017, the Bank hosted a Junior Debt Managers Program aimed at strengthening public debt management in the ECCU countries by training young professionals with the skills and knowledge required for modern and effective public debt management. I now turn to growth, competitiveness, and employment. Ladies and gentlemen, while the ECCU economy continues to recover, more work is required to achieve the targeted 5% rate of growth per annum. On March 1st, 2017, the Bank convened the inaugural Growth Dialogue with social partners at the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank headquarters in St. Kitts, aimed at identifying the key challenges and opportunities for growth, which can be prioritized into key deliverables of an ECCU Growth Action Plan. It is expected that the ECCB and the OECS Commission would collaborate with the member countries on the implementation of the Growth Action Plan. In this regard, the Monetary Council welcomes the enhanced collaboration between the ECCB and the OECS Commission as signaled through the signing of a Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, by both institutions on November 22nd, 2016. Given the nexus between finance and growth, it is necessary to improve access to finance by the private sector. Consequently, the Monetary Council approved the agreement for the establishment of the Eastern Caribbean Partial Credit Guarantee Corporation, which is designed to encourage financial institutions in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, ECCU, to increase their lending to micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. The legislation is currently going through the parliaments in member countries, and again was passed in Antigua and Barbuda. Let me now turn to the issue of BICO-CLICO. With respect to insurance matters, Council remains fully engaged so as to secure the most favorable outcome possible for our policyholders affected by the BICO-CLICO fallout. We have seen significant progress with respect to our pursuits of a resolution of BICO. In this regard, many policyholders have benefited from significant recoveries, and it is our expectation that with the passage of the Plan of Arrangement BICO-CLICO Act in the Bahamas, the way is now clear for a further and imminent dispersal of funds to eligible former BICO policyholders. Progress in respect of CLICO has been disappointingly slow. We continue, however, to press for the enforcement of the rights of the ECCU policyholders and shall continue to be persistent and aggressive in the pursuit of a just and equitable outcome for our people. On the issue of organizational effectiveness, I'm advised that the bank recorded a profit of $6.3 million for the financial year ended March 31st, 2017. I wish to commend the bank on its return to profitability after 3 years of losses. In conclusion, having accounted for my stewardship, I wish to place on record my profound appreciation for the support received from my colleague council members, the Eastern Caribbean Board of Directors, the Governor, management and staff of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank during my tenure. I wish to express my special gratitude to the Governor and the entire staff of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank for hosting my visit to the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank in April. Governor, I thoroughly enjoyed the lively interaction with your passionate staff and reaffirm my support for the work of the Central Bank. And I hope that this particular initiative will be institutionalized. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct pleasure to hand over the chairmanship of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank Monetary Council to my esteemed colleague and friend, the Honorable Roosevelt Skerritt, Council Member for the Commonwealth of Dominica.